Now today we're going to be talking about One Piece SBS Volume 100. Now this volume in particular, we did get some very interesting information regarding several things. Now I'm not going to talk about every single question that was talked about because some of those questions aren't really relevant to One Piece. It was just more so personal questions or just troll questions like the Yamato side boob thing. And it's funny because we literally had someone ask Oda if he could draw his penis. So yeah, we're not going to be doing all those questions, just questions that correlate to the actual story and has some sort of value, right? Now there is also the Vivid cards that recently came out as well, and that has a ton of juicy information which I will be talking about in upcoming videos because there is so much information in that Vivid card that you can make like 10 videos out of it, honestly. But today, for the most part, we are just going to be covering some questions that I thought was really interesting in this SBS. Now before we dive into this video, I would appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe if you're new here. Now the first question focuses on page 1 and Ulti, and here we get some backstory to these guys in terms of how they met Kaido and got involved in his crew, as well as how they got their Devil Fruit ability as well. So the question says, are Ulti and page 1 real siblings? Page 1 seems to call her with a term that feels more like it could also be said to an older female friend, not just his big sister. So I am very curious about the two. And Oda responds by saying, yeah, they are brother and sister. It appears their father was a pirate too, but he passed away. Kaido knew their father, so he ended up taking the two with him afterwards. Ulti was very smart. She stole 2 Devil Fruits that Kaido had and made both her and her brother into capable forces so that they could survive in this pirate crew where the strong make it and the weak get devoured. They even managed to become a Toby Roppo. Now what I do find interesting is that Kaido does seem to have a little soft side to him, because I would never imagine Kaido actually taking in someone's kids just because he was friends with your father. But then again, it seems like they were put in a situation that wasn't really favorable for them just in terms of surviving, which is why Ulti took the initiative to actually get Devil Fruits so they can somewhat hold your own in the crew, since it is a crew based around strength. And what I will also say is that it seems like Kaido has a stockpile of Zoan Devil Fruits, so I wonder if he knows how to identify Zoan fruits from other Devil Fruits. And to be honest, with Queen on his crew, I wouldn't be surprised, since he is well versed when it comes to these aspects, I guess, because we do also know that he also possessed Yamato's mythical Devil Fruit stored somewhere when Yamato, ate it. So he might have a fascination for Zoan Devil Fruit types in specific, because he seems to be going after these types of fruits. And this also basically confirms that page 1 and Ulti are brother and sister, which we already kind of knew based on their interactions in the manga. Now the next question is based on the structure of the CP groups in its entirety, and I thought that this was very interesting because it kind of gives you a perspective of what each section is doing, because for the most part this information was actually never revealed in the manga. Granted, we did know some things here and there, but as far as what each section of the CP0 groups do in specific, we didn't really know that. So the question says here, Mr. Oda, please tell me how strong and powerful CP is. I think it should be like this. Then this guy says CP0, CP9, CP8, CP7, from strongest to weakest, something like that. And then Oda responds by saying this whole group, the CP Secret Police, is actually a spy group that is people who work in the shadow of the government. The general public only knows about CP1 through CP8. The larger the number, the more important task assigned. The legendary CP9 has a privilege of eliminating people who are in the way of the government and is a murderous group that should not exist. The CP0 Secret Police Series 0 is different, is directly under the commands of the Celestial Dragons because they act under their orders. They are the strongest. Now I think for the most part we were of the assumption that the CP0 was the strongest, but it is still very interesting that other CP groups do have specific roles that they do play, and it says here that the higher the number, the more important their missions are, and in a sense that is also indicative of strength as well. So I imagine that a CP7 officer is weaker than a CP8 officer because he takes on weaker missions, less important mission. But it seems like in terms of prestige, CP9 and CP0 are put on a pedestal, which makes a lot of sense because one is protecting the Celestial Dragon while the other is the highest level involved in eliminating threats that hinder the world government. I think it was also mentioned in the manga that CP1 through 8 was something that the general public knew about, but CP9 was completely secret. secret. But I do think that it definitely says a lot for Rob Lucci in terms of his combat ability, because the Celestial Dragons would definitely want the strongest individuals to protect them, which is why in some sense the admirals do work under the Celestial Dragons, and that in of itself kind of puts the CP0 very high in terms of strength. Now we don't know if they do have a leader within the CP0, because I would imagine that this person would be around admiral level, but I will say that Rob Lucci is probably a lot stronger than we think. Now this next question is in reference to Kaido's weapon, and the question says here, Oda sensei, I have a question. Does the weapon used by Kaido have a name? And Oda basically responds by saying, yes, this weapon is called the Hasai Kai, which is a reference to the 8 commandments of Buddhism. It has no ranking, but if Kaido has to leave it behind, it would also be called a legend, right? Now, I did think it was a possibility that he could have had a graded weapon, because we know that the Owazamonos don't necessarily have to be swords. They just have to be weapons, and a good example of that is Whitebeard's weapon, the Kumogiri, which is a glaive, and it seems like there is also a spear within the 12 Supreme Blades based on this one panel over here. So there could be a variety in terms of the 12 Supreme Blades, but again, most of them for the most parts are swords, and Kaido's weapon doesn't really fit that category as of right now. But it seems like this is just a regular weapon that Kaido uses. It doesn't need to be of a higher quality. It's kind of in the same spotlight as Napoleon, but it is very interesting for sure. Now moving on to the last question, and here we get some confirmation relating to things about Black Maria. And so the question says, Black Maria's ability is kind of like Smiles, no? And Oda responds by saying, I know that the hybrid form shouldn't have 2 faces and her arms should be spider-like. However, there is no clear-cut rules for Zoan transformation. See Chopper, just like he manipulated his transformation, it is possible for others as well. Black Maria also feels that becoming a full spider woman isn't beautiful at all, so she must have used some drugs to change her hybrid form. Here's a natural one, by the way. Now I thought that this was very interesting, because this was something that a lot of people were actually talking about when the chapter dropped, because for the most part when it came to hybrid forms, it would take the beast part and the human part and combine them into one. But in Black Maria's case, she looks very similar to Smile users, in which the human part and the beast part are separated but still on the same body. So I think that's where a lot of the confusion came from, because it kind of deviated from the rule that we've seen for Zoans throughout the course of the story, specifically hybrid forms. But it seems like just like Chopper, Black Maria also possessed drugs that could manipulate her hybrid transformation. I think this was very interesting, because we also see Queen, who is also someone that has also modified his body in some sense, which in return kind of modifies his Devilfruit ability as well, and also his transformation. So science is actually playing kind of a big role in terms of Devilfruit as well, from what it seems like. Science honestly is probably one of the most underrated aspects of power in One Piece, and I think the reveal of the SSJ would put science in the forefront very soon. Now I never thought Oda would actually go in depth about this. You know, this was a question that I really liked, and honestly I hope we get more questions like this, because there's more things Oda needs to expand upon that are just so vague that you can't really make any clear-cut assessments. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I will be making a video in regards to some of the information that we got in the Viver cards, because again, as I mentioned, there's a ton of juicy information that came out from that. Gives us more insight to moments that has happened in the past, more lore. There's a lot of things that's going on in that Viver card, so I will be talking about that probably this week. Again, I don't think I'm going to be able to cover everything, just the more important things that should be talked about. But comment down below what you guys think. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at FerrisSpace. But it is Ferrer, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.